I was listening to Pastor Jeff Durbin while he was attending the TPUSA event in Alabama, I believe it was. And one of the people that came up who seemed to appear to be pro abortion, even though they claimed to be a Christian, and their questions were just juvenile. Not in the sense of like they were being immature, they were just immature in their faith, in their understanding. I think they were being honest, but they were just immature in their faith. Um, but in the series of questions he was asking, one of the points he brought up that he thought proved his point was saying Jesus was against capital punishment because of the adulterous woman memory. In the adulterous woman, the group of men brought a woman before Jesus and said, "We caught her in the act of adultery. Our law says we need to stone her to death." And Jesus started writing something in the sand and talking, and eventually asked them, "He who was without sin, cast the first stone." And all of them, eventually dropped all their stones, and no one had stoned this woman. And Jesus told her, "Go and sin no more." And we don't know what Jesus wrote, but we can think about that. But some of the interesting points that I want to record from Pastor Jeff Durbin was the context that helps illuminate and helps you think about what Jesus probably wrote. For example, they brought the woman in the act of adultery, but where's the man in the act of adultery? Unequal justice. You also can't have a single witness against somebody, and you also have to be able to cross-examine the witnesses or the witness. And you also, and this is probably what Jesus was writing about in the sand, you couldn't accuse someone of something you were also guilty of. So what did Jesus write in the sand? He was probably exposing their moments of adultery, writing it in the sand, not speaking it verbally. And when they read it, and they read it was about them, they had to drop the stone because they were guilty of breaking the law of adultery as well. And so I think that's very helpful to understand and remember, and that the context of the Jews at the time that Jesus lived is very helpful in understanding all the little fine details. And another thing, because this was a abolition of abortion was the main topic, and someone brought up, and I think this was a pro-choice person. She had pink hair, and so I'm presuming, I'm presupposing. What is Are we going to have special laws of tracking like women's periods or invading women's privacy with their doctors or anything like that? How are we going to, if a woman aborts their child, if abortion is illegal and a woman does a quote unquote back alley abortion, how are we going to discover that? Which I guess is it's a reasonable question. Because even if you can get to the point of, okay, abortion is murder, we accept and understand that, but how do we track it? Well, there's also another gentleman there that is more of the legal and political side of this talk and of Jeff Durbin's abolition movement. And then he pointed out that there's already laws against murder, and there's already laws on how you track, like if you have a miscarriage, what do you do with the baby's body? What's the protocol? Those laws already exist, and then for murder laws already exist, and how you handle it and how you track it, and that people die. Like if there's a miscarriage, people die all the time, and not everything, and most of them aren't homicides. So like there'd have to be questionable circumstances, and people would have to report it and be like, there's something fishy's going on here. So don't want to get too much into detail on that part. I'll save my anti-abortion, abolition of abortion comments for a much longer video, because there's a lot I'd like to record there. But I wanted to notate that while it was fresh. And the goal is to categorize abortion for what it is murder, and handle it and address it accordingly. We don't track down people who have, who are walking down the street and get struck by lightning and die, and, we don't do it. They're walking down the street and died. But, so miscarriages, again, unless there's something fishy and someone reports something suspicious going on, those would fall in the similar vein of thinking. But yeah, abolish abortion, it's murder.